The text message arrived at 9:17 p.m. I know the exact time because I was watching the clock, waiting for the sound of his car in the driveway. A low-grade, familiar anxiety was humming beneath my skin. It was the third late night at the office this week. On the coffee table in front of me, a copy of Architectural Digest lay open to a feature on minimalist garden design, a project I was consumed by. The house was immaculate, a testament to the quiet order I had cultivated over 12 years of marriage. It was my masterpiece, our life together. And then my phone buzzed with the text that demolished it all. It was from Mark, but it wasn't for me. God, this dinner is a drag. Can't wait to get out of here. All he talks about is mergers, counting the seconds until I can be with you again. I love you. The words seemed to float off the screen, shimmering with a malice so profound it felt alien. My first thought was one of pure logistical confusion. He's at a dinner? He told me he was finalizing the Henderson brief in his office. My second thought was a cold wave of nausea that started in my stomach and washed up to my throat. I love you, 3 words, deployed like a chemical weapon, designed to annihilate the recipient. But he had missed his target. He had sent the bomb to his own command center, to me. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the keypad. My fingers wanted to type a string of furious, wounded questions. But the part of my brain that had managed multi-million-dollar construction projects, the part that could see a blueprint and immediately spot a fatal flaw, took over. Emotion was a liability. This was not a moment for hysterics. This was a moment for data collection. I took a screenshot. I backed it up to the cloud. I deleted the original message. When his car finally pulled into the driveway 20 minutes later, I had arranged my face into a mask of serene, wifely calm. The architect in me was already sketching a new blueprint, not for a garden, but for a demolition. He walked in, loosening his tie, smelling of expensive wine and a perfume that wasn't mine. "Hey, sorry I'm so late," he said, kissing my cheek. The casual intimacy of the gesture was so grotesque it was almost laughable. Old man Caldwell cornered me, wouldn't stop talking about the upcoming merger. The lie was so seamless, so practiced, it confirmed the text was not a one-off indiscretion. This was a campaign. This was a double life. "Poor you," I murmured, taking his briefcase. "You must be exhausted. I saved you some dinner." For the next 6 weeks, I became the best wife I had ever been. I was a ghost haunting my own marriage, playing the part of Anna with an Oscar-worthy devotion. I made his favorite meals. I listened intently to his embellished stories about work. I initiated intimacy with a chillingly convincing passion. I was patient, supportive, and utterly engaged. He, in his breathtaking arrogance, mistook my performance for adoration. He saw it as proof that he was a man who could truly have it all. He had no idea he was a dead man walking. I was simply giving him the most beautiful, elaborate last meal imaginable. Every night, after he fell asleep, my real work began. I was no longer a wife. I was a forensic accountant of my own life. Mark had always been happy to let me handle the finances, praising my organized mind while absolving himself of the tedious details. His carelessness was now my greatest weapon. I sifted through our credit card statements, and a new, secret narrative of his life emerged. It was written in the language of hotel suites at the Four Seasons, jewelry from boutiques I had never entered, and expensive dinners at restaurants he'd claimed were always booked. I cross-referenced the dates with his work calendar, with its litany of fabricated late nights and phantom business trips. A clear pattern emerged. A detailed map of his betrayal. Her name, I soon discovered from a reservation confirmation email he'd forgotten to delete from our shared tablet, was Chloe. The name was a punch to the gut. Chloe Caldwell, the 26-year-old recently divorced daughter of his firm's senior partner. The man Mark was desperately trying to impress to make partner. It was a cliché so staggering in its stupidity that I almost felt a flicker of pity. He wasn't just cheating on me. He was risking his entire career on a reckless affair with the boss's daughter. The pity vanished as quickly as it came, replaced by the cold thrill of opportunity. He hadn't just given me a reason to leave him, he had handed me the means of his professional execution. I hired a lawyer. Her name was Olivia, and she had a reputation for being a shark in a Chanel suit. I met her in a discreet coffee shop an hour from our home. I didn't cry. I laid out my meticulously organized binder of evidence on the table between us. Bank statements, timelines, screenshots. Olivia looked at me over the rim of her glasses, a flicker of professional respect in her eyes. "Most women come to me with tears," she said. "You've come with a battle plan." We spent 2 hours mapping out a strategy that would financially disembowel him. We would file on the day of his annual bonus payout, freezing his assets before he could hide them. We would use the infidelity clause in our prenup, which he had insisted on, to its maximum effect. But the financial ruin was just the appetizer. The main course would be the complete annihilation of the life he was so proud of. the public image, the social standing, the career he valued more than anything, including me. For that, I needed the perfect stage, and Mark, in his hubris, was building it for me. He was the frontrunner for the single new partner position being announced at the firm's annual gala. The party was in 6 weeks. He was already talking about it constantly, planning his victory lap. It would be the greatest night of his life. I smiled and nodded and told him how proud I was. I was already planning the seating chart for his public execution. I spent the next few weeks drafting an email. It was my magnum opus of revenge. It was not emotional or hysterical. It was calm, factual, and devastating. The subject line was simple: an update regarding Mark and Anna. The body of the email was a concise summary of the last 6 months of my husband's life, complete with dates, locations, and expenses related to his affair with Chloe Caldwell. I attached scans of the most damning receipts: a diamond bracelet, a weekend in Napa, hotel rooms booked under his name. I concluded with a simple, dignified statement. After 12 years of marriage, I have made the difficult decision to file for divorce. I wish Mark all the best in his future endeavors. Sincerely, Anna. The recipient list was a carefully curated collection of every important person in our lives: our parents, our siblings, our closest friends, our neighbors, and most importantly, the entire senior management and client list of his law firm, whose email addresses were conveniently available on their public website. The night of the gala was electric. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers and the clinking of champagne glasses. Mark was incandescent, glowing with self-satisfaction. He moved through the crowd, shaking hands, accepting premature congratulations. I was on his arm, a perfect accessory in a deep emerald gown, smiling until my face ached. He'd even insisted on getting a photo with Chloe and her father. For the firm's archives, he'd said with a wink at Chloe that he thought I didn't see. I smiled for the camera, a silent fourth partner in their sordid little enterprise. At 8:45 p.m., just before the announcements were scheduled, Mark took to the podium to give a short speech. He thanked the partners for their consideration. He talked about his dedication, his hard work. And then he looked at me. "And I have to thank my incredible wife, Anna," he said, his voice thick with saccharine sincerity. "Her unwavering support is the rock on which I've built my career. I couldn't have done any of this without her." The room applauded. I smiled, a serene Madonna of spousal support. At 8:59 p.m., I excused myself, saying I needed to powder my nose. In the marble-clad emptiness of the ladies' lounge, I took out my phone. I opened my draft folder. My hands were perfectly steady. I pressed send. A quiet whoosh echoed in the silent room, the sound of a guillotine blade being released. At the exact same moment, a bonded courier I had hired was walking through the lobby of the hotel. He carried a sleek, black portfolio addressed to Mr. Harrison Caldwell, senior partner. Inside was not an email, but a quiet, personal, and infinitely more damaging package. There was a brief, handwritten letter from me. There were 8x10 glossy prints of the credit card statements and hotel receipts. And on top, nestled in a protective sleeve, was a high-resolution printout of that first, fateful text message. It was a professional presentation of his daughter's indiscretion and his prospective partner's catastrophic lack of judgment. When I returned to the ballroom at 9:05 p.m., the atmosphere had shifted. The celebratory buzz had been replaced by a low, frantic hum. Phones were lit up across the room like fireflies of doom. People were whispering, glancing at Mark with new, speculative eyes. I saw Mr. Caldwell standing in a corner, his face a mask of thunder, the black portfolio open in his hands. He was reading my letter. Mark was still oblivious, basking in the afterglow of his speech. It took him a few moments to notice the change, to see the averted eyes, the sudden silence as he approached a group. Then his own phone buzzed, and buzzed again, and again. I watched him pull it out, a confused frown on his face. I watched his face drain of color as he scrolled. I watched his eyes scan the room frantically, until they locked on mine. In that single, silent moment, he knew. He saw the serene, smiling, perfect wife in the emerald green dress, and he finally understood that she was the architect of his ruin. The look on his face wasn't anger. It wasn't sadness. It was the pure, distilled horror of a man who realizes he has been comprehensively and irrevocably outplayed. I didn't stay to watch the rest. I turned and walked out of the ballroom, my head held high. I didn't look back. The life I had built with him was a beautiful house with a rotten foundation. I had simply signed the demolition order. The ultimate revenge wasn't just the satisfaction of watching him fall. It was the quiet, profound knowledge that I had the strength to swing the wrecking ball myself and to walk away to build something new and entirely my own from the rubble.